All right. So welcome, everyone. Thank you again for coming to another SBA meeting. I hope all are doing well. I know at our e-board we were talking, we're all in the middle of midterms. I have one Thursday, had essays due last week. I'm sure y'all are in the same boat, just trying to survive till Thanksgiving. That's the mindset I'm in right now. So if you're in the same spot, we feel you. Thanks for taking a break. Be a nice little hour to maybe do some important stuff outside of the classroom, and then you get back to it. As usual, we'll do some slides, and then we'll have Billy Haubrich here, who is a proud UConn alum, do his session on personal branding. So let's go ahead and get started with the slides. One sec. All right. So, as usual, if you haven't already, please join us on UContact. So if you just go to ucontact.com, find the UConn Sport Business Association, just register as a member. You'll automatically be added to our email list, as well as you'll now be an official member of the club in terms of the university's sake. So hopefully next semester, or the semester after that, when we get back to in-person meetings and taking trips and things of that nature, you'll already be registered as a member, which is something you'll have to do in order to attend some of those things. Here again are our Twitter and Instagram at UConnSBA. Follow us where you'll see posts about different events we have coming up, different giveaways and stuff, something I'll talk about in a minute, but just a good way to keep in touch. If you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you need from us, any way you need to get in touch with us, you can just email UConnSBA1@gmail.com. And last but not least, check out our new YouTube channel, which is just UConnSBA, where we're posting all these recorded conversations we're having over Zoom. So if you weren't able to make the last couple meetings, or maybe you aren't able to make the next one live, they'll be recorded and then put up there for you to kind of watch whenever you want, to kind of get some of that material if you couldn't make us live. So check us out there. So not next week, but the week after, Tuesday, November 10th at 6 o'clock p.m. will be our first SBA virtual happy hour. So it's, instead of kind of a one-on-one with the speaker where we're kind of having a more structured discussion about career advice and things of that nature, this is a much more casual event. We'll be having not only SBA alumni or UConn alumni, but actual Sport Business Association alumni that were in the club, were on the e-board, in a lot of our shoes, recent graduates, so within the last 2 or 3 years. They'll be coming here. We'll be having conversations about kind of what they're doing now, favorite memories at UConn. Again, a much more casual experience just to kind of get to know some people that were in the club, what they're doing now, and some other members of the club. So like I said, casual dress, no reason to have to dress up for it. Just something you want to enjoy. We'll be sending out an email shortly for you to RSVP to that event. Just a heads up that if you are coming, again, it'll be a lot more interactive. So make sure this will be something to much more encourage to have your camera on and your microphone on to be interacting with alumni. And like I said, you'll be getting email with that shortly with an RSVP for that and a little bit more specific details on how that'll run. Next week's meeting, we'll have Kat Sapani, who has been with UConn for a little while now. She's in the operations department. If you've ever been to a UConn basketball game, men's or women's, pretty much any UConn athletic event, she's a person frantically running around behind the scenes to make it all work. So she's been at SBA for a little while now, and she's going to come and talk about her experience working with facilities. And Ty, you want to take this real quick?
Hello. Oh, there we go. Yes, my mic's not working. So for those who don't know me, I'm Ty. I'm the vice president of SBA. And I actually started my own podcast in March, just right after COVID happened. We got sent home. So it's called the Anything and Everything Podcast, and it covers a multitude of topics. So we've gone over sports, college life, culture, music, the finance business world, anime. So it's a whole load of topics. It kind of has some specific theme for everybody. Right now I have 12 episodes, and there's hopefully more to come. And you could find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts by searching up the Anything and Everything Podcast, or you could just type in my name, Ty Reeves, and it should pop up.
Awesome. Thanks, Ty. All right. With that, I will stop sharing and I will kick it on over to Billy, who will
Great.
take it away.
All right, let me share my screen. Bear with me one second. Oh, boy. All right, can you see the full slide?
Yep.
Right. All right, let me get to the top. So, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Billy Haubrich. I'm sure a few of you have met me in the past, as I'm usually a regular to UConn, both with the sport management program as well as this association. It's always an honor to talk to this program just because I was one of the founding members back in 2008. So it's always great to come back and talk to you guys. So, and over the years, I've done a variety of different presentations. You probably know me for my work with ESPN research, but today I'm going to be presenting regarding personal branding. So I know what you're probably saying. Why am I here? I'm old. I graduated UConn in 2008. So I've been out of the game for a little bit, been with Disney and ESPN for 12 plus years, but that's exactly the reason why I'm here. I was in your shoes years ago, and I want to help. So I'm here today to present a business essentials class focused solely on personal branding. And while this session is aimed towards junior level employees within the company, and it's within our company, I believe it also can be applied to college students as yourself. So I might not be the most qualified to teach this class, but I certainly have a lot of experience. And I think it's important to note that we're constantly trying to, reinvent our branding. So it's really important for you guys at such a young age just to not only define, but also understand and start to build that personal brand. One thing I will mention is, even though this is a virtual world, let's make this as conversational as possible. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, feel free to unmute and interrupt me at any time, or feel free to hop a question in the Zoom chat functionality, and maybe someone can alert me if that comes up. So again, my name is Billy Haubrich. Just want to formally introduce myself. Here's my story. So my story started actually with UConn. So I knew I always wanted to work for ESPN at a young age. I think growing up in the 90s, you guys can't understand. But if you want to work in sports, there really was only one option, and that was ESPN, at least for sports media. Other sports media really didn't exist. You only had kind of your local news and your radio station and your newspaper. Oops, sorry. And that was pretty much it. So ESPN was always the goal for me. So I went to UConn for many reasons, one of them being because of its proximity to Bristol, Connecticut. During my senior year of college, I did a year-long internship with the PGA Tour, working for a Travelers Championship, in which the fall I was a ad sales intern, and sponsorship activation intern, and then the spring I was a media intern. So I made a lot of great connections, did a lot of great work coming out of that. I stayed on, graduated in May, and then I stayed on through June just because that's when the tournament was. And then I went on and got an interview with ESPN right after. So all credit goes to Brent Colburn. Not sure if you guys have had him, but he's a great advocate and supporter of UConn in this group. And he was the one that kind of passed on my resume. So went in, started in commercial operations, which was a very junior level position. What we did was we maintained all of the commercial logs for the ESPN family of networks. So making sure that we adhered to all of the negotiated contracts. So making sure that Burger King, McDonald's don't air in the same break, or if Toyota is the official halftime sponsor of college football, that we don't air another auto during that halftime. So love my time spent with that, learned the business, but knew I wanted to try something different. And so I came across this one group called Research and Analytics, and I was just so intrigued by it. So I started having more conversations, following more people, getting in their meetings, working on different projects, and finally was able to transfer over to that group. So with Research and Analytics, that was kind of a consulting firm for the rest of the company. We were there to answer any questions regarding media, sports avidity, sports fandom, users, viewers for ESPN, both internal and external clients. So had a really good time, and I just really loved my time with research. I always told myself I was going to leave every 3 years. I was going to try another area within ESPN because it was just so massive. but that didn't really work. So I ended up staying in research for 10 years. And part of the reason was research was just always evolving in the way, and partially because the evolution of media and technology is evolving at a very quick pace. So the way you guys consume sports media right now is very different than it was 10 years ago. It pretty much changed every year. So the numbers I was looking at, the numbers I was interpreting and reporting on were constantly changing, inclusive of the methodologies. And that just always really intrigued me. During my time with the research, I participated in what I call extracurricular activities. So I helped with the ESPN internship program. I helped run Rookie Camp, which was our orientation program. I just loved helping others. So I won't get too much into the details, but Disney ad sales came together a couple years ago, and they formed a new group. And with that has all the sales personnel and all the support staff and the brands under the Disney portfolio. So obviously ESPN is one of those brands under the Disney portfolio. So I moved over to that group back in 2019, at which point they had created a new group called Learning Development, which I moved over to. So my new role, Learning Development, what we do is we help educate all of Disney ad sales personnel regarding content, brand, systems, and business essentials, so that they can have an educated conversation when they go to talk to clients. I think it's important to note that before Disney ad sales came together in 2019, these sales teams are siloed by brand and network. So you had ESPN sellers only selling ESPN. You had National Geographic only selling National Geographic. In the new landscape, these sellers have to sell every brand and every platform. So that's where my team comes in, and we just make sure that they understand what content they're selling to these clients. So I've been in this role for about a year and a half. Love it. I'm learning a lot. I'm able to teach, and I'm able to create classes like this. So I love this slide. I usually start with this slide, especially when it comes to personal branding, because I just want to get across what my brand is and how I got there. So from New Hampshire, I think I mentioned that before, massive UConn fan, huge Survivor fan. I'm not sure if there's many people left, but it's one of my top shows, and I can't live without it, except I have to now because of COVID. So we're trying to find other areas. Big Geno fan, Roger Federer fan, and yes, my claim to fame was when I was a senior in college, I was on The Price is Right, and I don't like to brag, but I was a big winner of the day and won nearly $10,000 in cash and prizes. So that's my claim to fame. So anyways, that's my brand. So what we're going to do today. So if I do this right in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to empower you with the knowledge regarding the power of personal branding and how defining your brand can greatly influence your career. So we're going to do this in 3 sections. The first one, we're going to define what personal branding means, so you have a clear understanding of what we're talking about. 2, we'll engage in some activities to help you identify attributes that define your personal brand. So we won't go through it in full length, but I'll just give you a few questions that you can ponder upon. I know you guys are studying for midterms, so I'm not trying to give you more work, but it's just some exercises you can jot down at a later time. And lastly, we'll examine how you create opportunities to market your personal brand. I also have a section at the end, which will address what I look for in candidates for entry-level positions, as well as interns, if that's applicable to you guys. So first part, defining what's personal branding. So in this section, we're going to cover understanding the meaning of branding and identifying key attributes of personal branding. So when we think about brands and branding, you often think about companies and corporations. And why is that? Well, brands thrive off branding. When looking at major brands across the world, each image here within this picture elicits a feeling and or emotion, whether you like it or not. So think of Disney. The first thing that comes to my mind, magical experience, family friendly, theme parks, movies. Nike, first thing, sports apparel, cutting edge technology, shoes, sneakers, innovative. Apple has the iPhones, McDonald's, fast food, and it's also unhealthy, and that was part of their brand that they're trying to change. ESPN, I think it's just sports. So it's extremely important for these for these large companies to have their own branding. Even when it comes to colors, they're doing the nitty gritty. Red is about confidence, while gray is about balance. Green means money. So even into the script and the colors and the font and the size, everything has a meaning when it comes to branding. People have brands as well. If you don't believe me, I think just looking at celebrities is a great example. The brands they portray is crucial to their image and popularity. So here we have a variety of celebrities that have strong personal brands, and while you like them or not, you know who they are and what their brand is, and also what type of show or movie or songs they're going to be part of. If you don't believe me, think of the ultimate personal brand, and that is Lady Gaga. I mean, she has made a living first off her talent, but also off her outlandish fashion choices. I mean, I'm no stylist, but these are pretty wild. But ultimately, this is creating a specific type of brand that she's trying to portray, not only to her fans, but to the entire marketplace. So what is personal branding? It is the process by which individuals differentiate themselves by identifying and articulating their unique value proposition, whether professional, personal, and then leverage it across platforms with a consistent message and image to achieve a specific goal. So I believe it's important to define what personal branding is not. And it's not your major, it's not your degree, it's not your resume, nor your job title. So in today's environment, everyone should have a personal brand. If you don't create one, one will be created for you by default. Don't be that person. You're at a perfect time and age right now where you can fully understand what a personal brand is and create it for yourself and then market your personal brand. And you'll be so far ahead of your competition when you're going for those internships or those junior entry level spots. So you should be controlling the narrative by creating this personal brand. So, oh, sorry, went ahead there. Why do you create it? Because first impressions mean everything. Whether you like it or not, research has shown that it takes less than 30 seconds for someone up to 21 additional interactions after that to make up for that first one. So we'll get to a little bit later, but we'll get to the importance of having an elevator pitch or speech ready at any time. So why create a personal brand? Here are a few other different reasons: to understand your skill set as well as areas of improvement, reflects type of person you are, and indicates to others how it is to work with you, helps to identify unique abilities, and improves your confidence as well as networking opportunities. A few myths. They say personal branding is a trend. We say personal branding has been around for centuries. If you don't believe us, just look at presidential hopefuls. I mean, obviously this is a crazy time to kind of go over presidential candidates and their branding, but it goes all the way back to George Washington and our founding fathers. You know, they had their own slogans, and that was reflective of their personal branding. They say your image is a personal brand. We say, while your image can be impactful, there are many other attributes that impact your brand. So it's not how you look. It's not how you dress. Yes, that could add to your personal brand, but that's not what defines you. And I think that's important to note here. They say personal branding is only about you. We say personal branding is about how you want to be treated as well as how you treat others. And I think that's really key for you guys right now at your age to kind of figure out. I remember when I worked with Travelers Championship, I figured out very quickly how I work with others, but also most importantly, how I want others to work with me and also treat me. So the only way you can do that is with experience. And I personally don't think that experience can come straight from the classroom. I think it's got to be real world experience in internships or shadowing. And working in groups and classrooms can help, but I think those internships will really push you to that next level when it comes to how you want to be treated and how you treat others in terms of working in this industry. They say you can't change your personal brand. Absolutely you can. I mentioned this at the beginning. We're constantly evolving, and that's a great thing. You know, I've had 3 distinct careers within ESPN and Disney, and that's because my interests have changed. So never get focused on one area or locked in one area. Always keep your options open, and just know that your brand will change as well. Personality. Personality is a form of, personal branding is a form of self-promotion. My apologies, got to edit this. And yes, it is, and that's not a bad thing. You're supposed to be promoting yourself. So looking at a few attributes of personal branding, you have authenticity, which showcases exactly who you are and what you can deliver. Sincerity, which is being true to yourself. People will pick up on false attributes, so just be real and honest. Credibility, identify your strengths and acknowledge your weaknesses. So I think a SWOT analysis could be good for that. Confidence, be proud of who you are and confident in your skill set. Just own it. Clarity, clearly define who you are to your target audience, and marketability, ability to showcase your abilities and skill set to anyone involved. So your brand reputation should operate the same way, building credibility and showcasing your character, attributes, attitudes, and actions in a way that instill good feelings in all. All right, so that's a lot to take, but that kind of covers what is personal branding, why is it important, and the different attributes. So for part 2, we're going to identify and help identify with you guys what your personal brand is. So this is more self-exploratory than anything. I can't create a personal brand for you. You guys have to do some self-reflection and create the personal brand for yourself. So during this process, we have a personal assessment, a brand assessment, and elevator pitch. So as I mentioned before, I'm not trying to give you guys more work. We can provide these slides afterwards at very top level, at which time or later time you can go in and answer these questions. But the first thing, the most important thing is, a personal assessment. So the personality of the brand reflects the sort of person you are and indicates to others what it'd be like to spend time with you, work alongside you, enter in business deal with you, and have to rely upon you. So the goal of this phase is pretty easy. It's discovery, to learn more about yourself, what you like, how you treat others, and how you want to be treated. You start by asking the question, who am I? But most people can't answer that question because honestly, we don't know, and it takes a long time to figure out. So people are always changing, as mentioned before, and that's a good thing. Once you discover yourself, developing a brand is much easier. So I know that's getting very deep there, and I'm not trying to get philosophical or extremely meaningful, but truly self-reflection and discovery is key before you can create that personal brand. So here's some questions that I challenge you guys to think about and answer when you have some time to help start that process when it comes to your personal brand. And that could be, what are my 5 favorite activities? What are the top 5 personality attributes I'd use to describe myself? What are the top 5 personality attributes that others describe me? What can I improve on? What classes or subjects are my favorites, least favorites? And what are the key elements of a successful career in your opinion? So we don't have to go through, but these are all my answers. I don't think you guys are interested. But usually what we do in these trainings is we'll have breakouts where groups of 5 to 7 people will get together, give them 5 minutes, and then they will tell their personal assessment or share their personal assessment with the other group. So once you get through your personal assessment, the next big thing is a brand assessment. This just helps push it a little bit further. So understand your likes, your dislikes. Now you're going to get to more of the brand side. So here's some questions. Again, we challenge you at a later time to get to. What would you like to accomplish with your brand? Who is your target audience? Is it professors? Is it, colleagues? Is it hiring managers? Is it your parents? Like you can have different versions of a brand for different people, depending on who that target audience is. What brand elements do you think your audience would respond favorably to, poorly to? Which brands do you think are successful, and why are they successful? What activities would best showcase your specific talents and skill set? And what activities would help improve skill sets or attributes? So again, I went through and answered these, so we don't need to do that. So yeah, we can send these questions along. Definitely go through these, take 10 minutes each, really get down to the nitty gritty and just challenge yourselves. And that will be the base to help you create that brand and also the elevator pitch. So speaking of elevator pitches, here's my pitch for you on why you should have one. Most of the time, whenever we meet someone new, there's always a very brief exchange in names and perhaps a handshake. Well, this was actually presented back in pre-COVID, so that might change, but you understand the idea. Even in a virtual world, you get on, and what's the first thing we talk about? Oh, how's the weather? What are you doing? Where are you? What are you studying? So there's always that 30 to 45 seconds, that just kind of blank time that you could use for your personal gain. So how do you change that? How do you quickly cut through, that kind of fluff and determine if this person, that you're talking to is worth networking or not? So having an elevator pitch ready is always key. because you never know who you're going to be talking to and if they can help influence your career. So an elevator pitch is a prepared short summary around, I'd say 30 at the very minimum to a minute at the max, which introduces you to a specific target audience that helps identify your brand's needs and goals. So the do's of elevator pitches: make it short. Like I said, no longer than 1 minute. It should not be that long. Focus on the message. Do not get distracted. Be selfish. This is okay for you to talk about yourself. That's the time. Know who you're talking to. It's very different if you're pitching to an executive compared to a junior level employee. In your case, a dean compared to a professor, compared to a peer of yours. Practice a lot. It's not easy, but also make it realistic and not rehearsed. Be general. I know this might be a little confusing, but don't get too in the weeds and too specific of what your brand is or what you're looking for, because you're going to extend past that minute. And always mention 3 strengths. I remember when I was your age, when I was going around interviewing, I always used to say I was calm, focused, and determined. And I gave examples to back those up. And the mention 3 strengths is nothing I found in books. It was just something that I always did that I found to be successful. And so I just wanted to pass on that knowledge. All right, we can't get through the elevator pitches without going through the do nots. And you'll see this is kind of the opposite of what I just talked about, but don't make it long. Don't make it confusing and complex. Don't ask for an action item. I'll sometimes get, if I'm getting pitched, hey, can I have an internship? It doesn't work like that. I'm not Oprah here. I'm not giving away internships. I just work with the internship program, but I'm not part of the decision-making there. Keep it focused. Make sure you're prepared. And I was writing here annoying. There's some pitches that come across that's just, it's all the above. And all the above can lead to annoying pitch. So I'm not doing a good job of explaining what annoying means, but you all know it. You've all seen somebody go across and try to pitch something. You're just like, yo, like, pipe down. This isn't working. This isn't the time or place. So just don't be that person. So again, at this time, we usually break up into groups and we have you guys create a 4 to 6 sentence elevator pitch and then talk to each other about that pitch. Obviously, we won't do that, but another really good exercise for all of you guys to do, just so you're prepared. And if you are a senior right now, it's about that time where you should have a pitch ready. Once again, you don't know who's going to be at that Zoom call. You don't know, I was going to say elevator, but that's never going to work. You just don't know who's going to be in the Zoom call that can help you. For me, it was Brent Colbert. He came into Dr. Burton's class one time. I happened to be there. He presented. I went up, gave him my elevator pitch, and that worked for me. So obviously, Brent's a really awesome guy and extremely helpful, but I was prepared. I didn't know he was going to be in the classroom that day, but I did have an elevator pitch ready, and I was able to pitch it, and it obviously worked. So I would say if you're a senior, it's definitely that time to start thinking about it. And if you're younger, it doesn't hurt. All right, so part 3, applying your personal brand. So during this part, we're going to go through how to market and maintain your personal brand. So why market your brand? Here's some research stats. Like I said, I spent nearly 10 years with research, so you got to back up your facts with research. So 85% of jobs are filled through networking. 72% of people say their impressions are impacted by how when someone appears and their handshake. I'm guessing that last part will change post-COVID. 1 in 4 people don't network at all. Huge mistake. And only 11% of LinkedIn users have more than 100 people in their network. A massive mistake. And I'll get to LinkedIn in a little bit. So how to market your brand? Always be networking. The goal is to increase your sphere. You want people across a bunch of different industries, across a bunch of different companies, levels, to be a sponsor and an advocate for you. I know someone always used to talk about having kind of your own board. So you think of these big companies and they have a board of directors. Think of your brand as having a board of directors. Who's going to be there that's going to not only be able to identify, but stand up for you and promote you as well. So I think you're a little young to start creating your board of directors. But when you get into the workplace, you can definitely use peers. You can use professors, deans, whoever it is, coaches. to be part of that board, your board. We've all heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's whom you know. With personal branding, this phrase changes to, it's not whom you know, it's who you know. It's who knows you. So it's really about getting yourself out there, making sure people understand who you are, what you believe in, and them advocating for you. So the do's of networking: strong first impression, that elevator pitch is key. Be an active listener. If you're engaging in conversation, I can usually tell who's thinking of the next question they're going to ask me and who's actually listening to what I'm going to say. So you might not care what I have to say, but at least come across like you're listening to me. That makes a huge difference. And because you're listening, you're able to engage in conversation. And I've had great conversations with many students at UConn who, I know they didn't fully understand what I was saying, but they were able to engage in conversation. And they went to that conversation not expecting to talk about data or sportsivity or learning development, but they were able to kind of pivot their approach because they were listening to what I'm saying, and they're able to apply their personal brand to what I was talking about. And that was huge. Ask relevant questions. So, if you're talking to a sports person, ask sports. Don't ask me about Disney Plus if I work for ESPN. I'm not a Disney Plus. I'm not in that industry. So it's tough for me to answer. But I love Disney Plus. I'm not trying to, for recording purposes, Disney Plus is great. Everyone should subscribe. Be genuine. You can always tell who's being fake when it comes to networking. Remember interesting facts. When I helped out with the internship program, I always had my interns keep a spreadsheet that was inclusive of names, positions, emails, phone numbers, and an interesting fact. That way you're able to engage in conversation in an organic manner and way. So if I know someone is a Bears fan, I could go through my spreadsheet and say, hey, I saw the game last night. What are your thoughts? Also wanted to catch up in the near future. Let me know if you're free. It's just a natural way of networking. I don't think I have this in here, but one thing that does drive me nuts is in an email, if someone's trying to network or catch up, if they have different fonts in there, I can obviously tell that they're just switching out my name and they just have kind of a template. Don't be that person. That drives me insane, and it drives many others. And so, be genuine, just be real. We're taking the time to help out, and I'm not trying to say we're superheroes, because we're not, but just make it a little personalized, and that will make your brand so much stronger. Reach out frequently, but not too frequently. I would say probably once to twice a month is key when it comes to networking. And know their business and industry. And it's funny because I remember when I was interviewing potential interns, I'd always ask why ESPN, because people love sports and they'd always tell me sports, and that's great. But it was, what about sports? And some people say I'm the biggest sports fans. And oh, wow, that's great. Like, there's a lot of sports fans. So if they're the biggest sports fans, they must know a lot about sports. So my next question, I'd ask them, what's your favorite property, or what about ESPN drives you to apply to this? And then some people would reply, and it's just an example of one. There's many great examples, but this is just a prime example of how it didn't work out. Someone replied with, oh, I love March Madness. And that's great, but ESPN doesn't cover March Madness. So if you're the biggest sports fan and the biggest fan of ESPN, you should know that. And I'm not looking for the biggest fan. I'm not looking for the biggest ESPN fan. Actually, diversity of thought is key. So if you don't like sports, it was more likely to engage in conversation just to see why you're interested in ESPN. So just be real, be honest, but also know what you're talking about, and don't inflate your ego when it comes to the knowledge you have. All right, and as I said, wherever there is a do, there is a do not. So when you're networking, it's a little different than an elevator pitch. When you're networking, you're engaging in conversation. So ask about the other person. Don't only focus on yourself. Don't be confrontational. Don't think you know more. That kind of goes back to what I was just talking about. Don't reach out too often. Have a focus. Don't ask a favor of them. And I always put this, I remember when I presented this Brett, he was kind of shocked by this, but you would be surprised on how many people I talked to would be like, oh, so can you give me an internship? And like I said, that's just not my area of expertise. And if you ask for it, you probably shouldn't deserve it. So who to market your brand to? Here's a list. I won't go through all of it, but here's a list of good places you should market. The short answer is everybody. You know, if anyone's willing to listen, that's who you should be talking to. So your peers, what I call extracurricular activities, which are different organizations. I remember at UConn, I was part of, as I started the SBA. I was a news anchor for UCTV News. I'm not sure if that's still around. I worked in the sports communications group under Mike Enright. So just did a little bit of anything and everything that'd get me involved. I think your friends also help, and they're really good practice on how to not only market yourself, but also the elevator pitch. Social media is key. We'll get to LinkedIn in a minute. And alumni, obviously, most of us, I can't say everybody, but most of us are here and we're willing to help. So maintaining your brand, what's important for you guys to do in order to, you know, not only market, but maintain that vision of the brand that you put out. Resume and cover letters, these documents represent you, make it current, accurate, tailored, and engaging. Employees, you know, we will catch mistakes. There's nothing worse if I get a Word document and there's just that red squiggly line within there that you misspelled a word. Just don't do it. It's very easy. Also, just send a PDF. You know, that doesn't happen. If you have to do, be a little more, have to do a little more investigative work to find those faults. So send in a PDF would be my advice. Actually, my first advice would be just spell it right. When emailing your resume, cover letter, reference documents, you should use an email name and signature that reflects your brand. We've received some applications from, I wouldn't say highly inappropriate email addresses, but just ones we wouldn't want the Disney brand to be associated with. So again, it's your personal email, but also you're emailing a company you want to work for. So make sure it's just plain and simple and right to the point. Social media, remember, social media, if it's public, the employer will find out. We do sometimes, there's some hiring managers that will look on Facebook just to see what the images you're putting out. Again, once you join a company, you're then the face of the company. Whether you're an intern to a VP, you represent that company in all aspects of what that means. So social media is definitely part of that. So just be very mindful that, again, if it's public, that's the brand you're trying to get out. Maintaining your personal brand. Here's a great list of resources. I'm sure you guys have plenty of others that I'm not aware of. I mean, I'm a little bit older. I mean, and by a little bit, I mean a lot older. So you guys are the hip ones in these. I'm hardly using these, but I saw that you guys have a YouTube channel, and that's awesome. You know, Instagram handle, all that is great. But one thing I want to really approach is just LinkedIn. I think this is just a huge asset that everybody should be utilizing. Again, whether you're a freshman in college, actually, whether you're a freshman in high school all the way to retirement, this is just a great way to expand your network. Also see what other people are doing for their personal brand. Like that is the prime example of what a personal brand looks like is on your LinkedIn page. So if you're not, you should be creating a LinkedIn profile right now. And you should be, if you're looking for a job or internship, it doesn't hurt to what I call cold calling in a LinkedIn world. Just send out messages. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone's going to say no. That's okay. I think that's worth a risk for you guys right now. And let's be real, like in the sports and the media industry, it's a little down right now. I mean, you know, we don't have as much funding as we did at one point just because the revenue isn't quite there. And that's just a symptom of COVID and what's going on right now. But I'm not saying that's going to happen in the future, that we're not going to rebound, because I fully think we are. But you got to create your own opportunities. And LinkedIn is a great way for you to create those. All right, so that kind of wraps up that part. I don't know what else I have in here. So just kind of wrap it all up. The who, you know, personal brand is all about self-discovery. Therefore, the who will always be you. The what, a way to differentiate yourself by identifying, articulating your unique proposition. Anywhere, you should seriously be doing this anywhere and everywhere. It's a constant evolution. So I would say if you don't have, or if you've never thought about personal branding, now's a really good time for you guys to start. And again, you're going to be getting ahead of your peers. And that's key when going for that internship or entry-level position. And how? Through self-discovery exercises, elevator pitches, and networking opportunities. So I'll quickly cover just, you know, preparing to apply for internships and jobs. I know we talked about resumes and cover letters earlier, but keep it to one page. Creativity is appreciated, but it can also be distracting. Represent your brand through a mission statement. So I'm not sure if you guys do this. And actually, I probably should highlight this because this went over the best. And the last time I presented this is when I go through resumes, if you have a mission statement at the top, that's 2 to 3 sentences that kind of defines who you are, what you're looking for, in just 2 to 3 sentences, that goes a long way. And that just kind of shows that you did that self-discovery work to get to that personal brand. So I would highly encourage it. I don't think it's recommended. And also resumes are really subjective. It's what that person's looking for at that time, at that moment for that specific need. I'm just telling you what I usually look for. And again, it can't be applicable to every job, but at least you have some kind of expertise since I helped out with the internship for a couple of years. Make cover letter relevant to company and position, focus on skills and tools. And last, but certainly not least, don't forget about extracurriculars. If you can have a strong GPA and you're also part of SBA and the sports communication program and UCTV, I know you can do your job and you can also participate and get the most out of the experience. And especially with the internship, it's all about getting the most out of the experience. And with the internship, you're tied to a specific job, but we also provide these extra opportunities for you to grow both personally and professionally. But it's not going to work unless you can do that specific job. So I always kind of glance at the extracurricular because it gives me a basic understanding of, hey, this person goes above and beyond. And I don't want you to think if you play a sport that this doesn't count. This 100% counts as an extracurricular. I think that's probably the biggest extracurricular because it takes up so much time. So I would definitely encourage you guys to put down SBA on your extracurriculars and also expand upon about how much time you're dealing with it, what you've learned from it. I think all of that definitely helps. Preparing for interviews, the best thing you can do right now is just read, listen, and learn. You guys have a huge advantage. When I went through, we didn't have these. There were newsletters, but they weren't as intrusive as what we have now. So we had the Sports Business Journal, and that was great. But now you have plenty of opportunities. So if you're looking for media, Synopsis, CTAM, Digiday, and there's also a bunch of great podcasts. So I don't go over all these. I highly recommend The Lead and Variety Strictly Business. The Lead is more around sports and Variety Strictly Business is around general entertainment. Again, this is for media and sports media. So I'm not telling you have to read these in order to advance your career. But I'm just trying to get you to think about what you can listen to and what you can to make you that more educated for that conversation when you have with an employer. I don't remember what this slide is. Frequently asked, some questions I usually get for an interview. Tell me how you heard of this position company. Oh, this was Brent. All right, so we're just gonna skip this because I didn't present this. I meant to take this one out. I'm not quite sure what this one was. Last thing I'll cover are our internship opportunities. So we unfortunately didn't have a lot of opportunities this past summer just because of everything going on. That will hopefully change. We are posting, and I can only speak towards Disney ad sales as that's where my job is now. We will be having some internship opportunities within marketing, advertising, all that good stuff come the spring as well as summer. My guess is they're going to be virtual. I don't have proof of that, but that would be a pretty good guess on my behalf, given that I'm still working remotely. So if you have any questions, I would definitely take a look at the disneycareers.com site. And that list will list out all the opportunities for both spring and summer. The one thing I will say about the internship program, it's a great program, at least I think, in that you have your full-time job, but you have all these opportunities to grow personally and professionally. So we have a weekly speaker series in which we have executives come across the entire Walt Disney Company to talk to these students. And what I found over the years is actually it's a two-way street. It's not only for the students to learn about the executives, but it's for the executives to learn about the students and how they're engaging with media. As I mentioned before, media is constantly evolving, and that's a great thing. But you guys are the ones that are the future of how media is going to grow. So as much information as we can get from you guys, the better off we're going to be. So I definitely encourage you when you get an opportunity to speak to somebody, when you get an opportunity to interview, be an expert in social media, be an expert in media, because honestly, you know a lot more than I do because you're living in it every day. So definitely challenge you to become that expert, because that's what we're looking for. And I think you guys can really influence a company just because of your experience. So having said that, I will open it up to any questions. I know that was longer than 30 minutes, so I apologize.
As usual, y'all, you can either unmute yourself and ask live, or you can type it in the chat too, and we can read it out loud, whatever's easier.
Quiet group.
Ty, Frank, I'll call you guys out.
Yeah, I could go. Thank you, Billy, for the workshop. But yeah, I'm the marketing officer for SBA, and yeah, I was just wondering. Obviously, you talked a lot about like all the different ways to personal brand and like having a network and using social media. But what would you say like personally worked best for you in your personal brand to be able to land your job at ESPN?
Yeah, it's a great question. I attribute my success to the internship I had. Also, there wasn't social media, so I'm not trying to say poor me. It's different now than it was.
Billy, I think you got muted. Your mic cut out there.
Ooh.
Sorry about that. Gotta love these Disney computers. Sorry, where did I cut off?
I think it was you said like you didn't have social media, and so it's different now.
Yeah, so I think when I went through, your work really had to show through, and I also attribute most of my success to these extracurricular activities. When I worked for the sports communications team, I was an announcer for volleyball, hockey, field hockey, and lacrosse. So I remember every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was announcing some kind of game. So it was a grind. I did a lot of work, but I made a lot of great contacts there, and I built my network early. So for you, I would say there's a lot more opportunities with social media, but having that base of a strong resume filled with experience, internships, strong grades and extracurricular activities, you can never go wrong with that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
Y'all hear me? Is this working?
Yes.
I swear, there's something wrong with my laptop too. But yeah, Billy, thank you for coming to the meeting and talking to us about personal branding. I appreciate it. So me personally, I've been really interested in working for ESPN and the Walt Disney Company, but more on the media side. And like right now, just with everything going on and constantly checking for internships, whether it's the spring or the summer. So do you know when those peak periods are for, me to go in and actually look for when these internships will be available?
Yeah, I would say for spring internships, I know they're currently working on the job descriptions right now. So those should be up within the next month. I know it's not ideal. I know it's a little late, but it's just the nature of the world we live in right now. As for summer, my guess, I can only go upon the history, and it's usually between January and March is when they're posted, interviewed, and filled. So personally, I think it's a little late. I think it should be right now for summer. But again, it's just the nature of the industry and how everything's just a little behind because of COVID. So definitely take a look out and let me know if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have one more question because
Sure.
this is what anybody else is going to ask. So personally for me, cover letter is something that I've had like particular struggles with. So do you have any advice for writing one?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I shouldn't say this on camera, but I'm not a huge proponent of cover letters. I just don't find too much value in it. But again, that's me. Every hiring manager is different. I know certain hiring managers, like if you don't have a strong cover letter, they're not even taking a look at your resume. So for the cover letter, be as specific as you can to that company and that specific position. So Google the company, find your relevant experience and how that relates to the company and also the position. So I think the more specific you can be, and tie in your experience. And also you can use your coursework. Like it doesn't always have to come to internships, and internships are going to be scarce this upcoming year, whether you like it or not. There's just not going to be as many internships. So that puts everybody on an even playing field. So what can you do? You can talk about, the podcast you're listening to, your knowledge of the industry, who you've talked to. All that's fair game now because we've lost that internship competitiveness. So I think in the cover letter, you can really be creative, and you can put, not only your experience, but the classes, and just other projects you work on. So don't be afraid to think outside the box. And honestly, that will probably get more attention if you do that. And one thing I didn't address before that I remember I did during the presentation is, the resume and the cover letter are great. For me, a lot of it comes down to that first conversation. How much time did you spend looking into the business, into the specific position, into this industry? Especially for entry-level jobs, I'm not looking for the most experience. I can teach you that. That's my job as a manager, to teach you the systems, the tools for you to be successful. I can't teach an interest. So within research, we had a lot of people that are always interested in coming working for ESPN. But it's always like, why? Why ESPN? Why research? Just because you love sports wasn't good enough. I can teach you the systems, but I can't teach you, how to have passion around numbers, about, being consultative when it comes to ad sales and clients. And you get that way through just pure reading and listening to podcasts. So definitely spend a lot of time on your resume and cover letter, but also spend just as much time as preparing for that interview.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You got it.
Hi, Billy. Do you have any more advice for graduating seniors trying to find a job and everything in the COVID world?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I do not envy you. I can only empathize. Once again, I think the best thing you can do is just become as educated as possible in what you're interested in. I think what you can do is have conversations with professionals, such as myself, and I'm not saying I'm a professional, but I'm just a professional in this world, about what they do. I think it's key for you guys to figure out not necessarily what you want to do, but you don't want to do. And that's going to save you so much time in your first few years. So leverage the alumni, leverage that happy hour in a couple of weeks, reach out through LinkedIn to alumni, just get 15 minutes just to figure out what people to do. I didn't know research even existed until I got to ESPN. Granted, it was 12 years ago and it wasn't as prevalent as now. But if I had known that, I think I would have gone into research a little bit sooner than I actually did. You can't control everything. You can only control what you can control. So don't sweat it. I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. But if you put in the time of talking to people, to listening to podcasts, to truly understanding what you're interested in and becoming a business athlete, as we call it, you won't need luck. It'll come across in your resume. It'll come across in your interviews, and you'll put yourself so far ahead. So I just really challenge you to, listen to those podcasts, have engaging conversations with each other, with professors, and just become a business athlete, and you'll be fine.
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? I know we just hit that 7 o'clock time limit.
Gage, why don't you ask a question?
All right, you're going to put the spotlight on me. Billy, I always wonder this, especially when you do this personal branding. Do you run into it, or you have people run into this idea with the elevator pitch, like this awkwardness of, hey, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take 30, 45 seconds to talk to someone that I might admire, I might envy a little bit, and I have no clue. I'm just going to talk about me and almost trying to talk about my strengths and my personal accomplishments. when we did this exercise, I know when you talked about a year ago, like it felt really awkward, and a lot of other people felt awkward about it. So does it just practice it and getting over it and eventually it doesn't get awkward, or what is your kind of advice to get over that?
Yeah, and first of all, I apologize that you had to listen to this twice. That kind of sucks.
No worries. No worries. And no one else here has seen it. I'm the only one. So.
All right, good. Great question. And you know what? Talking about yourself is just not natural. You know, it's natural in front of friends. It's not natural in front of people we don't know. So the more practice you have, the more natural it sounds, and make it sound conversational. It's kind of the same in a virtual world. Presenting in a virtual world is just as terrifying as presenting in the real world. But if you're reading off a script, it's got to sound natural. So I encourage you guys just to go over it as many times as possible. Be able to pivot. You know, someone might stop you halfway through and say, "Oh, you said you worked in research. What'd you do there? Why'd you switch from production to research?" You know, be ready for those pivots. So if that does happen, you can go back to being on point. And always with the elevator pitch, I don't think I mentioned this. I mentioned in another section, but always have 3 attributes that you get across. I think that's absolutely key. And I always remember when someone tells me, you know, 3 attributes at the end of their elevator pitch, that always sticks with me. So there's no really easy answer to your question. It's that cliche, practice makes perfect, but you just have to sound natural. You know, we can tell when it's forced, when it's rigid. So just practice. And what we've actually done a lot within my group, we do a lot of these trainings, and we're activating trainings for 1,000+ people. We just go on Zoom. I'm not sure if you guys have the record function. Just record yourself doing this elevator pitch, and then just be self-reflective. Go over it by yourself. If you want to get your peers to do it, I know that's very uncomfortable. No one's probably going to do that. I probably wouldn't do it, but it's another way to kind of get that feedback, and feedback is absolutely key.
Yeah, it makes sense. Not the easy answer, but probably the right one.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think anyone else had anything. Thank you again, Billy, for hopping on. Best of luck with everything. I know all of us are kind of feeling it. All of us have had to adapt. All of us have had to change how our daily routine looks like. So best of luck. And hopefully once things get back to normal, whatever that may be, whatever that is, we can see you back at UConn some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, let's get back. I feel like I last time I was there, I got a tour of the new gym, which is kind of RIP. I'm not sure if that's still around anymore. But I feel like there's always new buildings going up at UConn, which is always a good thing. So it's always great getting back. It's always great talking to students like yourself. So keep up the good work, and please let me know how I can assist. I'm always here to help.
Will do. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Billy. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks a lot, Billy.